Hey folks, welcome to the Mike Lopez TV Show. I'm your host, ACMike. We'll bring you all things Atlantic City, politics, sports, dining, entertainment, and so much more. Our first guest tonight is William Reynolds, the Atlantic County Prosecutor. And after that, our second guest for today will be musician, composer, and music teacher, my friend Eddie Morgan. So stick around, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, folks. Our first guest is Will Reynolds, the Atlantic County Prosecutor. Will, welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to come share this time with you.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Listen, before we get going into the meat and potatoes of this interview and talking with you about what's going on in Atlantic County and what you're doing out there and your team, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let the viewers know.
So, born and raised in Brigantine. Graduated from Brigantine North School, first in my class, president of the class, 1987. Holy Spirit, 91, top 10, graduated 7th in my class. Full ride to Rutgers, went to Rutgers College in New Brunswick, Rutgers Law School in Camden, and worked in Philly for a couple of years, learning how to try cases against some really good trial lawyers. Tried almost 65 cases to conclusion, picked over 150 juries, and got beat up a little bit young. Only lost 2 verdicts, but had a very great learning experience for the first 5 years of my career. Came back down to Atlantic County to get married, have kids, raise my boys in Absecon. And in 2012, I became a municipal prosecutor. Did the circuit, as we like to say, around the county. Served almost every municipality in the county at one point as the municipal prosecutor. Ended with about 8 municipalities, and in May of 2022, was nominated by Governor Murphy to be the Atlantic County Prosecutor, sworn in June 6th as acting, sworn in as the full county prosecutor August 9th for a 5-year term. So
outstanding, and just when you go through that, you've been through the grind, so to speak.
I'm a grinder.
Right.
My kids play ice hockey, third line grinder.
Love
baby.
it.
No easy pucks in the corner.
I love it. So listen, Will, about 8 months or so, right? You know, all full time here. Tell us about your leadership team. What you've done with that is unprecedented.
So a few things happened on my journey to get the job. So my opinion, based upon being a municipal prosecutor, was that there was like this like iron curtain, and there was like this mystery that was out in Mays Landing. And you know, even as a municipal prosecutor and dealing with municipal police officers, we really didn't know what was going on out there. And quite frankly, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to change the public perception of not only the people that work there and the great work that's being done, but the accessibility. So what we did is we created a leadership team that included a basically an outreach like initiative that included an executive assistant prosecutor, which is Rick McKelvey, a director of community outreach, Ray Royster, a deputy director of community outreach, Siobhan Davis, and then an admin assistant, Rich Cornett. So that part of the office did not exist. And what I did is I went to the county. So for everybody watching, I don't know if they understand, but the county funds the prosecutor's office. So it's actually a county agency. The appointment's done by the governor, so it's a state level appointment. County funds it. So every single thing we do needs approval of the county. So I had to go to the county and say, all of the resources for the executive, I'm going to reallocate these resources into outreach because I don't want anything for myself. I don't want anything. I don't want a driver. I don't want anything. I want no security. I don't want staff. I want nothing for myself, nothing for my leadership team. I want to create this executive branch of the office to do outreach. So I moved 4 jobs out of executive into outreach, asked the county to move that funding over, created those new positions, filled those positions, and hit the ground running. We've done over 120 community outreach events really since we hit the ground in July. So we started June 6th. It took me a couple weeks to get that in place. July 1st to today, over 120 events.
So you hit on the building culture a little bit, the hirings and the way you shifted things around. Again, unprecedented. Moving that curtain wide open. This is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. Your relationships with the different communities, not just here in Atlantic City. We talk a lot of Atlantic City, and I don't want to say there's Atlantic City fatigue, but there is a grind there as we speak, grind to try to get that revitalized, whether it's health and wellness, public safety, and quite frankly, business-wise. But you're doing this throughout the county, right? And this is what folks don't understand sometimes, I believe, when you say Atlantic County.
So 100%. So part of the other dynamic of the prosecutor's office, and this is the traditional version, you have an attorney side that's led by the first assistant, who I appointed, Eric Bergman. Grew up in Ventnor. Dad was a Holy Spirit crew coach, Penn crew coach, Ventnor lifeguard. His dad's still the chief of lifeguards in Ventnor. And then Pat Snyder is was the deputy chief, now is the chief of detectives. So you have an attorney side, you have a detective side. So our primary function is to prosecute cases. How that's served is you have lawyers showing up in court, but you have detectives doing investigation. So any major crime in the county gets investigated by our detectives. So the local police departments will be the first one on scene. They call out to our office or do investigation and give it to our office, and then we pick it up. And then from there, our office prepares the case, gives it to our prosecutors, goes to grand jury, indictment, and then you get charged, you go to court. So it's amazing what we've done, because you really have now 3 lanes. What used to happen in the prosecutor's office, we had a prosecution lane, investigation lane, now you have the community outreach lane in the middle.
And the way you spell it out there, I mean, we're talking sports a few minutes ago, and I don't want to say it's not like sports, but there's that organization, and it may sometimes look like unorganized chaos, but it's organized chaos is what it is. And the folks, now you had to have a buy-in from your team. So, I mean, speak on that for a minute, please.
So that's creating the culture and building the team and empowering people to do their job. So as a leader, so I've studied leadership, especially the last few years, from an outsider's perspective, because I was leading small groups, whether it was my kids' ice hockey club or whether it was street hockey or lacrosse with my boys, or being the municipal prosecutor in a bunch of towns. I always had a team, whether it was 4 people, 5 people, 15 people. Now I have 185 people. Right? And then what I did is I made a conscious decision that I was going to empower the leaders in the office and not create followers, but create more leaders. Empower them to do their job. Let them tell me their vision and let me help them execute their vision. They have institutional knowledge. Some people have been there 20, 25 years. Yo, tell me, how do we fix the problems that are here? How do we cure those ills? And then work with them together and bring them together and use all of their resources, all of their ideas to make the place better. That's how you get the buy-in.
And when you get better, you get a well-run, and you get your public acceptance of what's going on there. And the fact that, again, the transparency that what you provided, brought, and I want to say this to Prosecutor Will. It's not rocket science, but it has someone that has to have the will to want, no pun intended, the will to want to do it and maybe not be liked by everyone.
So that's 100% correct. One is the will to do it, right? Because it'd be very easy and I use this analogy. So if I go to work tomorrow, or I'd not go to work tomorrow, there's no one saying to me, where are you? Right? We are constitutional officers, right? We do not have sick time, we do not have vacation time. We're 24/7. And I take that to heart because I am one of the highest paid employees in Atlantic County. I wake up every day hungry to earn that pay that I'm getting because my obligation is to the citizens, right? We're here to serve the community. So I look at it every day as an opportunity. How can I better serve our community and our citizens today? So what I did is I said, I'm going to polarize the office. I'm going to pull back the curtain. I'm going to build a team. I'm going to empower leaders. Then I'm going to go out and I want to share all that information with the public that's never been shared before to build that accountability, build that credibility, and actually include people in the equation. How can we be better? Right. And listen.
It's beautiful because it shows me that you are a leader. You're not threatened. You're here to do a job, and that's what is most important. Folks, stick around. We'll be right back to continue this discussion with William Reynolds, the Atlantic County Prosecutor, right after this break. Welcome back to the show, folks. We are here with William Reynolds, the Atlantic County prosecutor. Will, listen, let's just jump right back in where we left off. Your relationships with the other departments in the county. Talk to us.
So one of the things I learned from my parents is that the true test of who you are and what you can accomplish is your relationships and how you treat other people, right? So one of the things that I watched my father do when he was a unelected leader in Brigantine, right? And then he ran for mayor in 1985, lost by 24 votes, and it was the greatest loss the Reynolds family ever had because it made us hungry. Then I watched my mom be the president of the white-collar workers in Brigantine. They formed their own union with my dad's help, and she negotiated the contracts. Neither one of my parents were college educated. My dad went back to Atlantic City High School at 20 years old. My mom graduated in Philly, and neither one of them had any higher education. So they were educated in a different world at a different time, and relationships mattered. And I took what I learned from my parents, and I parlayed that into my professional life on how you treat people and treat everybody the same, everybody with dignity and respect, and everybody with empathy, because I know how hard, and this is the segue to your question about leaders of local law enforcement agencies, chiefs of police. I know how hard their jobs are because as a municipal prosecutor, I had to deal with some of the same issues because you're appointed and your job is given to you by the local elected officials. And then you are responsible for an agency, you're responsible for everything that happens in that agency. And as a police officer, you may not actually have the training or the skill set to do everything in that agency, just like a prosecutor doesn't. And you have to be able to either go to training or create opportunities to get other people to help you, and you have to be willing to listen. So what I did is I forged a relationship while I was a municipal prosecutor with all of the chiefs of police in Atlantic County in the towns that I worked. Well, now that I'm the county prosecutor, I've capitalized upon all those personal relationships, all those one-on-one interactions in the back room of municipal court to now say, hey, we're going to take that relationship and we're going to take it to the next level, because now we're going to take all of that information that we learned about each other and build that trust, and then create policy and directives and guidelines and change the game and make an impact together. So what we've done between myself, Mr. Bergman, who's the first assistant, Pat Snyder, who's the chief of detectives, all three of us born and bred Atlantic County, all three of us Holy Spirit graduates, all three of us have a lot of relationships in the community. We capitalized upon those relationships on the law enforcement side, and it's made the transition smooth. And we go to every single chief's meeting. And what we did is we took the opportunity to meet with all the chiefs, meet with a lot of them individually, hear what their challenges are in their department and how we can help them as the supervisory authority, as the county prosecutor's office. Well, when you come to somebody and you say, how can I help you? They're generally receptive, because we're not asking for them anything. We're asking, how can we help you? You know, so that's been tremendous. And then the spinoff of the local police departments is what we've done is at those local chiefs meetings, we've then hooked up with the DEA, the FBI, Homeland Security, right? All of these agencies are here in Atlantic County. Most people don't even know. Most people don't even know where their offices are. Well, not only do I know who those people are now, do I have their cell phone numbers, I know where their offices are, and I interact with them on a daily and weekly basis, and then we've done operations together. And I've been briefed in their office and watched video and understood what this operation was going to be, and then joined together, like one of the operations we did in Atlantic City when we took down the block on Florida Avenue. We sat in the public safety building at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I watched a drone fly over Florida Avenue, and I watched all the video cameras and the pole cams in the street and the officers' body-worn cameras, and I watched the whole operation with the guy who runs the DEA.
Right. He's like, what are you doing here? And it's amazing that you are. Exactly.
Well, they're putting me in the first seat, which is,
right.
Yeah, they put me in the first seat. You know, so when I was briefed on that, here I am sitting in the first seat. When the Vice President of the United States came to Atlantic City for the NAACP convention, I'm in the first seat. I'm being briefed by a room of about 80 people, and they're saying to me, Mr. Prosecutor. Right? So that's when it really became real for me from a law enforcement perspective. And I said, I need to meet every single person in this room and have a relationship with them so I can rely upon them in time of crisis. So one of the things that I've learned through other leaders, like the Colonel of State Police, Colonel Callahan, he talks about blue sky days. Well, when you meet people in blue sky days, it's not threatening, it's not crisis, it's not critical times. It's easy to have a relationship. It's hard to meet someone for the first time when you're in the middle of a crisis, because you don't have that trust. So that's why those relationships have been so significant on the law enforcement side.
And what you've done, and some of our students, I'm going to look and tell you, and folks out there, I know we're talking law enforcement and prosecutors, but it's cultivating those relationships, whether they were 10 years, 5 years ago, whatever. If you're in your passion of work, and it works for you and you're proven fact. Listen, I see you out there with the walks on the boardwalk, different social service agencies throughout the county. Tell us about those relationships too, because it all works hand in hand. What you're doing with the others is, again, I want to say unprecedented. It was stuff that was talked about, been to those meetings, walked on some of those walks, but it always would seem to break down. So social services.
So the one of the most important things is keep showing up, right? Because how do things break down? People lose interest. Well, when leaders don't show up, people lose interest. So as a leader, I have to keep showing up all the time. That's why I love the grind. Show up at 6 o'clock in the morning to check the boardwalk, to check the homeless people, check the at-risk population. Show up at 10 o'clock at night to check the lights. Right, great segue from the social services. Not only are we putting social services agencies in a position to succeed because we're bringing them people that are in the at-risk initiative, ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to make public health and public safety synonymous in Atlantic City. So if somebody has an issue, we can get them the help. Arresting them doesn't serve the purpose, right? And then going back to the lights, if the lights are turned on, it's more likely that crime won't happen. It's more likely that homeless people won't congregate or build an entrapment or a fort or some type of thing that we have to then take down and create more work for public works. So we've collectively, between law enforcement, social services, CREDA, DCA, ACPD, Councilman Shabazz, we have worked together. And what I do is I jump out in front and say, okay, this is what needs to happen. And using the lights as an example, we have over 600 lights fixed now. Another 362 are in the queue. I go to bi-weekly meetings with CREDA, City of Atlantic City, Senator Brown, Calvi Electric, Atlantic City Electric. And we're working together to not only fix the lights right now, but to make a system in place so if a light goes out in the future, there's a fix right away and we don't go back to the same problem.
And beautiful, because I've heard those meetings as well. It's this light, that light, and it may be telling the truth, but now they're getting fixed. That's the bottom line. So we got about 2 minutes left, and I know we have some subjects we want to hit, so that means you have to come back. But talk about some of the things right here again, and within 2 minutes that we haven't hit on yet, Will.
So I mentioned the at-risk initiative. That ties into the 7-day-a-week mobile outreach with Sheriff Scheffler, and you were at that meeting. Ultimately, the at-risk initiative does one thing. It identifies people who need help. They don't need to go to jail, they need help. And what we do is, if they have warrants, we'll detain them, engage them with social services. If they don't have warrants, we'll get them to social services right away. We have a working group that shares information every day, and that's basically to help clean up Atlantic City, get those people the help they need. It's a win for everybody, because the less people that are on the street that are homeless, that are being engaged in social services, whether it's detox, rehab, mental health, doesn't make a difference. Whatever they need, we're there to give it to them. Our goal is not to arrest them. Our goal is to help them. Same token, if they won't receive the help, then they're going to go to county jail. That's non-negotiable. You can either get the help or you can go to county jail. The choice is yours. Another segue with that at-risk initiative is the chairman, John Risley, of the Freeholders Board, or commissioners now, actually articulated in a public meeting saying that Prosecutor Reynolds and his team are enforcing the law, and we're going to be forced to build another facility at the Atlantic County Jail, and they're going to try to tie in mental health. And that would be the biggest win ever. You know it from your past experience, and I know it. It's what's needed. It's a blind spot. I've spoken about it publicly. I did PBS interviews about it. It is what needs to happen for people that need the help the most.
So there you have it, folks. Listen, we're talking with the prosecutor of Atlantic County, William Reynolds. And we'd love to have you back because I know there's so many more things going on. We'll be hitting these meetings. Will, thank you so much for joining us here at Stockton University. And God bless you and your team.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, stick around. We'll be right back with our next guest. Hey folks, welcome back to the show. Our next guest is a good friend, music, composer, musician, music teacher, the one and only, Eddie Morgan. Eddie, welcome to the show, my man.
Good to see you and good to be here, Mike.
Listen, I love it, folks, and if you don't see that smile and make you smile, something's wrong with you. Eddie, so listen, what we do here, I know you, and a lot of the folks even here in the studio know you. But tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself, raised, and your love for music.
Well, born and raised in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
That's right.
I call it Casino City of the East, man.
That's right.
But for a long time, World's Playground. As I grew up, we were able to do a lot of things that aren't no longer in Atlantic City, like, you know, bowling alleys and all that kind of stuff. But music became my passion. And when I look at how my life went, I started with band and stuff in school, went to high school, on to college, got a music degree, came out, still wanted to play in bands, so I started my own bands back in like '87, and still going today.
You definitely are still going today. Before we go into some of your inspirations, tell us some of the bands that you played in the type of the music. Was it all R&B or good?
Yeah. Way back in the day, it was all funk and R&B bands. We played covers off the radio. We dropped the needle. You know how they used to do that. We get the horn parts, and we had singers that could and couldn't sing like the record, but we had a lot of fun. And in fact, Angela Burton and I were in a band together, and Free Spirit LTD was one of my first bands. Wow. And we won a Warner Brothers national competition and did a demo recording in New York City. So that's a little history back in the day, but listen, my influences go way back with music in Atlantic City.
And that's what we're going to talk about here, though. But we have a generation that's missed the record player and whatnot, though. And that's for another show. When you come on the radio show, we'll talk more about that. No, Eddie, talk to us a little bit about your inspirations for music. I know you hit one or two, though, but there's many more, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first and foremost is Louis Armstrong, because my sister and I would stay up and watch old movies with Louis and Velma Middleton and Ella Fitzgerald and all these greats that were in these movies, and Louis was singing and playing his trumpet. So when the 4th grade came around, I gravitated to want to play the trumpet. And it just was so much fun, and I was able to do it well, so I just continued with it. But after I got into high school and all, many others, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, Clifford Brown, you know, Freddie Hubbard, I mean, Lee Morgan, Wynton Marsalis, all these guys are like inspiration to me. And I probably do my style more like Miles in a way, but they all come out sometimes or another. You know how improvisation is. You hear a lick, you use that lick, you bring that lick back, whatever. But that's what's influenced me.
And it's amazing, like you said, you drop those names like that, and to be able to, at a young age, to be able to pick that up. I'm sure you were encouraged at home as well to do some of that.
Well, yeah. Well, school teachers did it. Ken Scribner was one of my first trumpet teachers, on with Dr. James Burns, and then on in high school we had Mr. Burbick, who was our band director, and French horn teacher was phenomenal. Like I said, Mr. Burns. But we went to all kinds of things with band and orchestra and choir, and I sang too. So, love singing. That was kind of my first passion, because trumpet wasn't first.
Right. So it's and then that just gravitated to. So listen, not putting you on the spot, but you brought a little instrument back with you, and you've wrote something. So why don't you give us a little taste in the folks at home?
I just happen to have my trumpet with me.
Right.
Well, this little ditty I'm gonna do is called Chuck's Groove. I'm just gonna play the first section of it. It's on my first CD with Roy Ayers and the Atlantic Urban Jazz Ensemble, produced by Bill Lark, a good friend of mine.
Very nice.
That's just the two A sections.
I love it. Now listen, we gave them a little teaser. Tell folks where they can find that.
They have to see me.
Right. Okay. All right. And we're going to talk more about that. Where they're going to be able to see.
Facebook page, Eddie Morgan, and then I have Eddie Morgan Trio page, and Eddie Morgan Rec for Jazz page.
So Eddie, again, lifelong resident. The music in Atlantic City. We only have a few minutes there, but talk about some of that, because I'm sure that was some of the inspiration, what you've seen going on around you, besides those awesome names that you mentioned.
Back in the day, the Club Harlem was the main spot on the north side. You know, so it was like Apollo in New York, and my mom used to take us to shows. So I got to know the musicians as I was coming through. Johnny Lynch was the lead trumpet player, and he influenced me a lot as well. But the Wonder Gardens was a spot to play at, the Jockey Club, and I even got to play the 500 Club once.
Wow.
When my sister's junior prom, our band, the Black Essence, played for their prom in the 500 Club.
That's amazing.
So it was the town was wide open, but totally different than it is now.
Right. So we only got a few minutes left. Again, like I just keep saying the same thing. But tell us, I mean, and you said it was amazing, whether it was, on Kentucky Ave or the 500 Club. What was that experience like? I saw the smile, but just tell folks so they get a sense of that history.
You would see lines around the corners, you know, like trying to get into the shows, because the Club Harlem held like 500 people. So if they had a line, it went around the block almost, you know,
right,
to get in, because nobody rushed. You couldn't just go in.
Right.
There was only one entrance.
And it's a beautiful visual, too, as well, because we see some of the pictures sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, if I had a club, that's where I do it. Hey, folks, listen, we're going to take care of you. Right. We're going to feed you, get you a drink, get some great music, but you got to stand outside. But it's beautiful, though.
Right.
It's amazing. The history of Atlantic City music is unprecedented. I mean, there's only a few places you could go to see some of it. I think Boardwalk Hall with the Atlantic City experience. But what you're doing, my friend, is keeping it alive. I mean, you're out there.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. Well, Kelsey's has embraced on Kentucky Avenue, and I call it KY and the Curb South Side, because his north side is gone. Right. You know, the Club Harlem and all that was on the north side. So anyway, Kelsey's, we play second Fridays, and we're moving into a new spot, the Rhythm and Spirits, on the Orange Loop with Mark Colazzo's spot, and we're going to be there on the first Fridays. So you can come on down and check us out. Eddie Morgan Trio, me and Darryl Robinson and Jeff Burnside, we'll do our best to put a smile on your face and play some good music for you.
Hey, so Eddie, thank you so much for being our guest today. Love you. You'll definitely be back.
My
Folks,
pleasure.
Listen, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey folks, it's our belief here at the Mike Lopez TV Show that you, the viewers and our guests, bring the show to life. Thanks to each and every one of you for joining us tonight. To learn more about AC Mike, go to acmikeng.com, on Facebook at ACMike, Mike Lopez, and LiveWorkPlayAC, and on Instagram at ACMikeNJ. If you enjoyed watching today's show, you can also listen to my radio show on WOND Radio, 1400 AM, 92.3 FM, and on the World Wide Web at WONDradio.com, Mondays through Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Also on Sundays from 11 to noon. Remember to always live, work, play AC, and I'll see you on the 48.